be potential members of our union. Now we're going to have our last panel. It's going to be a very interesting discussion because we will have state representatives, government representatives with us, and we are going to raise this point that the society is the customer of the education. Business is the part of the society, government is part of the society. So let's welcome Tatiana Berezhna, Deputy Minister of Economy of Ukraine, responsible for the workforce, for human capital, and many other things. I'm also inviting Roman Hryschuk, member of the Parliamentary Committee on Education, Science and Innovation, and the person who is actively involved in the reform of the National Aviation University, and not only. Let's also welcome Mikhailo Vinnytsky, Deputy Minister of Education. He'll join us in 2 minutes. So let's start discussing and move forward.
So let's have this conversation this way. I know you want networking. Everybody who wants networking, go to the terrace. There's a great terrace with chairs, but we need to finalize this panel discussion. Thanks for everyone who is online with us, because we have quite a big audience, surprising as it is for this evening time. And let's start by there was a lot of conversations today, and I would like to hear the first thing. What has impressed you the most? Well, it can be both negative and positive, but in what you've heard or what was an eye-opener for you. For me, there was a lot of eye-openers. Roman, you start. I'll start because we already reflected on that. I just wanted to voice that. I'm thankful that not Mr. Stadny is moderator. Thanks, everyone. Igor, do you want to switch? So I'm happy that you saw it to the final panel discussion so that the ideas of future tech and education be generated, expressed on all panel discussions. So what's the first thing? And we need that business and universities need to talk more because there's a lot of discrepancy and misunderstanding of each other's problems by each other and some kind of mindset. So there was nothing like that. Maybe behind closed doors, just to share their problems and limitations that they face and businesses about their limitations that they face. So once again, show how important this event is and that sometimes there's still misunderstanding between the two. I can say I was listening attentively, but there was a lot that would mention professional education, professional technical education. We are debunking the stereotype because I remember myself as I was in 11th grade, either Mohyla Academy or nothing. Now I understand that there are so many interesting career paths in Ukraine. And there's understanding that you can find success and make a lot of money by choosing different other career options in professional technology, professional jobs like gas welding. Like I have a friend, so I asked them, "What do you want to go?" And they say, Tatiana, we want to take a grant for processing industry and found our own business. And I think, was that possible a few years ago? Not sure. So I'm happy that there are people seeing so many opportunities around, not so many stereotypes, especially great that we have a lot of women businesses. They have so much responsibility, so much on their shoulders because among 1 million people mobilized, 60,000 women. Of course, most of them are men, so women have to take a lot of roles that were earlier non-typical. So I'm happy that there's a lot of blue-collar jobs become popular. I liked in this discussion, among other things, I will write maybe a text about this later because there are so many interesting things. But what I've heard was nuclear energy. that the contractor for nuclear energy is the state. In Ukraine, we have a reform of corporate management of the state-owned companies. So, who contracts specialists in nuclear energy? State-owned companies, who, according to the corporate management reform, just as universities have this reform, so now it's a business. And we need to stop looking at the state. You know, it's about what the state-owned companies need. In terms of science, I can agree. Well, teachers. Yeah, but teachers, there are private schools of teachers. What's the percentage? Teachers and doctors. You know, guys, what I didn't like in the discussion, the state is always something bad, ineffective. There was some first panel discussion. So I would nuclear energy, corporate management, private schools, private kindergartens is all good. But there are things that where we as a society are contracting party. So who needs higher education? There was an answer, it's society. Yes, because it's businesses who need employees, and society needs scientists, innovators, and inventors. And of course, new companies being created. And everybody stated that there's a problem. Like before, I want Mikhailo to say, have you heard what we said, that the state is something bad? I didn't hear that. It's just that everybody else is saying that the state is bad and cumbersome. So who is the contracting? You know, the rudiment is that the state order of how many professionals have to be trained each year. During the committee meeting, we were discussing this question. And in all the generations of Minister of Economy, she was saying about state order, being the deputy minister just a couple of weeks. It was an interesting exercise. After that, I think nothing can make me stronger than this educational committee. We as the Ministry of Economy, we collect different orders from different state agencies, ministries, agencies, etc. So we collect what their needs are, and we see that for mechanical engineering, minus 90% of the state contract compared to previous years. So how's that? Mechanical engineering, we have war, Miltech, modern technologies, hardware. And that's how the Ministry of Economy can have a real impact. They're not an expensive bureaucrat that collects state contracts. And we decided no, despite the fact that, and we were told that the reason is that there is no demand for mechanical engineers, so that's why we don't allocate budgetary funds. So we say, okay, we will create the demand. And we made 90% more than the universities asked for. So I agree that society is the main contracting party. We need to have less fashionable but very virtual specialties, like less lawyers, economists, journalists, and more hardware jobs, more biologists, chemists, mechanical engineers, etc. But yeah, that means the state can implement that, and knowing the strategy, knowing who we need. We have Mikhailo Fedorev at the beginning. He made this fantastic presentation, which I liked a lot in the context of what can the businesses do in the reform of different education. And it was, the way businesses like. Here's the menu, choose 1 + 3 or 1 or nothing, and there was, or suggest your own option. So you, as a teacher, a long time ago, you have been teaching for a while and consulting. So I'm an old guy. I know what you mean. No, you're experienced. So we worked with Mikhailo on the project, this Ukrainian export strategy. and he was teaching a lot of globalization issues. So you also see global context. You see it. You keep an eye on it. Where are we in this global context right now? I can say something surprising. We are being seen as an example of interesting processes of transformation of education. I can say that as a person who talks regularly with the Polish, German, British, and French and American rectors who are very interested because we have our students and our teachers are often there over there, so they want to understand what's happening in Ukraine. Can they send them back to Ukraine or not? So when we talk about transformations that are now happening, one says, you take a Spitfire, like a British aircraft during the Second World War, and you try to make it into an F-16, and it's flying, and it's being attacked, and you're trying to do that on the fly. And it's an incredible challenge. People are looking at it and they wonder how you manage to do that. World context is now, we've heard several interesting things. As the rectors were speaking, they said that there's an important element of science in universities. That's right. Just as we talked in the previous panel, you said that the higher education establishment is not just preparation for labor market, that's a specialty, but it's some kind of community, soft skills, leadership skills, personality skills, etc. What's happening now in the world context? We have certain split into different types of universities, and Ukraine is doing the same as Europe is doing and others are doing. Not everybody will be Cambridge and Harvard. It's research centers, where most of 50% of students are masters and aspiring sciences. Some of them will be teaching universities, or as Scandinavia says, applied sciences university. They have related close relations with employers, where there'll be dual education. There was not enough about dual education mentioned today. It's a hugely important instrument of connecting businesses and education. And you have to say, just like that nowadays the American liberal arts model starts to be more and more popular in Poland, Germany, and France, especially Scandinavian countries, where, in fact, they don't train you to have a profession. I usually laugh with my colleagues from Ukrainian Catholic universities. They're talking about professional, but it's not about profession. It's about shaping the personality, value-based personality in certain community. So the things that need interdisciplinary programs, other types of approaches, you can't just do one, two, or three. You can't be both scientific and work with the employers and the community building. It's impossible. It's like in business, you're trying to be so multitasking, like quick, cheap, and half-cooked. You can have 2 out of 3. They were warning us that they can be light. So let's go in. So we have some transformation. It's a more intimate atmosphere. So, and the same happens in the world-renowned universities. I think we are part of those trends. Right, thank you so much. I wanted to talk about 2 things now. As a person that works since 15 years old, and I was learning at the same time. So I wanted to talk about dual education because it's super important. And second thing, as a lawyer, and I can't avoid being a lawyer, I would like to talk about legislation. Tatiana is dealing with labor code reform. We all understand that without changing our approaches, as we heard from Anna Adam, that there are requirements to health, that you can't, without the paradigm change to properly organize workforce and labor, and to have the least interference from the state, as we talk with our strategic council. Without that, nothing will happen. So dual education what do we have, what's happening, how can we give it a bigger push and bigger involvement of businesses there. And then paradigm shift, because labor code, Roman, is not going to happen without you. Let me start about dual education. Right now, it's the trend that we have based on universities, what aviation university is doing, what Polytechnica is doing. One of the so they call it collaboration of businesses of graduates is dual education. Take your undergraduate students, let them teach, because your specialists will not go to work in universities because of the low pay, because you need them, because they're key people for your organization. So, but give them some part of work, a part of the day of week that they will be working with students, because you immediately create your future employees without waiting until they graduate and then retrain them from scratch. Teach them the first time properly, because dual education is important. This is where businesses play the best role. Not to go to university to donate money for some monument, which is also not bad, but it's better to go and work with students together. I understand that not every business will now be able to help build a curriculum or help correct the curriculum, but through these short things, you will be more involved, you will understand better what the university needs. So, and that's the question, what's with the dual education? The more we have these, we have all the necessary laws for that. The more successful attempts for businesses there will be with companies, with universities, to work with dual education, the better it works. So, but start at the beginning, there should be a critical mass of cases, and it would be easier for business to start working with them, with universities. On labor code, I fully agree. What about dual education? I can do something very unsafe because it's going to be published in the press now. Do we use Chatham House? No. Everything is on the internet. By the end of, I think we can do it by the end of the October. I have it written by 40%. It's a survey for dual education, a questionnaire. You know, we talk a lot about dual education, but it requires two key persons have to come together to make the design. First is a person that is ready to take responsibility for educational program, for curriculum. We call them a guarantor of curriculum. It can be head of the faculty, but it can be different positions, but they will take the academic part. Most probably, this person has a clear cooperation with HR. And unfortunately, we see that these two persons speak different languages. They're from different worlds. And that's why, though surprising as it is, if dual education in the educational community has been discussed for a while, for some 5 years, but in HR world, they don't really understand what it is, and they don't understand us. Yeah, they don't understand you. You speak Spanish, they speak Chinese. These are two different worlds because people grew up in different traditions. So there should be some kind of publication that will aggregate it, collect it as a questionnaire for HR. Dual education doesn't have, I really want to stress this one thing, there's no unified model. Some will do dual education where a student 2 days a week in the lecture hall, third day in the workplace. It works in law quite well. In engineering, it doesn't work. So there are engineering people here who say that doesn't work. There's a model university that I graduated in Canada, University of Waterloo, where there for 4 months you're intensively learning, then 4 months you're in the workplace, 4 months shift, but they don't have vacations. And the students are discouraged because they don't have vacation. But if you tell the students, sorry, but you're making great money within those 4 months. Okay, I don't need the vacation. everything's okay now. Now HR have to tell them, okay, we're going to pay them normal salary for these 4 months, and we will compete with other employers for this student, because that's not going to be a group of 10 to 12 that come to learn. It's going to be 10 to 12 companies who will compete for those couple of students from each group, and that requires administrative support. So that we need to draw some investments from the business in order to start it. But in fact, you have to give a lot of interesting advice how to do it. So that's why we're planning to publish this kind of reference book as a Q&A session. How should HR approach universities to do something like that? And I think it's going to be a great project. I announced it, so it means I have to do it. Public commitment that you take. Yeah, I wanted to mention dual education and how we try and implement an interesting tool. So we asked the employers, what's your biggest problem? 50% said the biggest problem is that we're understaffed. On the other hand, we have 2.8 million unemployed. So how is that some people can't find people, other people can't find job? So it's structural unemployment where the skills don't match the demand. So we have our professional technical colleges. What's the difference? Because it's reskilling, retraining for adults. So we, with the Ministry of Education, we decided to have a supervisory board from employers in each of such academy. Employers come, you have obsolete curriculum, you have bigger length. So we asked the employers who want to build more professional people, and HR from Sava Lipkin's restaurants volunteered to be part of that supervisory board because they need chefs, the bartenders, etc. And we realized that it takes 5 months to teach a bartender. And you would wonder, what do you need 5 months for? But it's like that. So we will be adapting these programs. We have such colleges in Poltava, in Lviv, and Dnipro. In Poltava, Taras Parasenko from Aurora, he says, I need this kind of factory of great staff. So it's an option available for you as employers. On our page of Ministry of Economy, we post these opportunities. So here's supervisory board announced the call for Dnipro. So let's now talk about upskilling and reskilling. It's important. But let's talk about legislation. Does it stand in the way? Because in the context of labor code and in the context of lack of definition, what's self-employed, what is the full work day, or other rudiments, it doesn't help a lot to dual education. It doesn't help the employment of students. It doesn't allow for short employment project because it generates a lot of entrepreneurs. So where we're moving, I think the audience knows that we are living still by the labor code of 1971, which matched the demands from the economy back in the day when there was no private property, no businesses. There were only labor relations between the state and the people. There's no private party in that. And there are some rudiments. One of the biggest ones that concerns employers is that pregnant woman below 3 cannot go to a business trip, or condemnation of the labor team, or providing the soap and mineral water, many other things. They're not the biggest problem. But there is inflexibility of bargaining agreement. there's no mandatory written bargaining agreements. You don't fully understand your relations with the employer. So we, with the Ministry of Economy, have a commitment to the President of the government and head of the Parliament to register in the Parliament the new code by the end of this year. And it's a very politically difficult question. If it were easy, then in 50 years maybe somebody would have done this. But there's always a clash between employer and trade unions and vice versa. So I had a meeting today with the trade unions, and I tell them, look, we have negotiations. I'm going to EU in March. We have to show something. We implemented 23 directives. If you will be protesting us now, that means you're against European progress. Let's remove that. Those, footwear. But maybe we'll have some kind of new dialogue with them. I don't know. So the meeting is regarding labor code is slated for soon, for a later date, and this understanding from government and businesses. It's IT, it's labor code, and the businesses also, they were saying, okay, so why do we need the labor code? But in fact, I think this whole ecosystem, understanding this coexistence is important. I want to collect 3 short questions without big long introductions. So who do you address the question? Mykola Skilbaum. Question to all 3. Do you see prospects in higher professional schools? So like universities, like there in the world, Hochschulen in Germany and Finland, professional high schools that train specialists for labor market. So there are less universities. You can concentrate the limited resources on them and not imitate science with fake scientific publications. So do you see professional high schools that are vertically integrated with different higher educational academy? Yeah, thank you. I would agree with everything, only for the last part where you talk about vertical integration of colleges and professional high schools. That's something that we're against. But an obvious fact is that out of 160 state-owned universities existing nowadays, 130 15 months ago when we entered the ministry, now there are 123. Soon there will be 122. They're actively modernizing the network. So out of those establishments, a huge number of them, 2/3 of them, will transition to working with employers, to communities and unions who work with employers. It can be polytechnical academia, but not necessarily. It can be legal law academies or different, more specialized establishments. But it's important to follow this trend. It's a European trend. For the educators in the audience, let me tell you that we have, this year, we restored the formula-based budget distribution, and there are same criteria for all educational stuff. You have to do science, you have to provide employment, international activity, etc. So what we're trying to do, like from 2025, the criteria of the formula will be different for different types of establishment. The establishment itself will choose. Are they moving towards employers? Are they moving towards science? Are they moving towards value-based programs, bachelor, interdisciplinary? So these are the things that will be reflected in the funds that are allocated. So in evolution, we're going there. We'll have a big number of professional high schools, but we need several years for that. We're still not quite there. Eugenia?
I'll give you the mic since we have an online streaming. I have a question to Tatiana, and she even probably knows what the question is. we are representatives of the non-formal education, and there are many different programs such as Reskill, UA, etc. How can we join these programs and work together with the state? There was one great example from 2022. Are there going to be new programs like that? With certificates issued in the end, do you plan anything of this kind with Ukrainian representatives of non-formal education? Look, I will give two answers to this question. It's very important for all non-formal education providers to understand the state strategic documents. For example, recently we approved MSP strategy. Look into it. Until the end of the year, we will approve the strategy for the employment of population, and it will contain the list of specialties needed to achieve strategic goals. These are great strategic documents which our donors, our investors read, and money will be allocated within the Skills Alliance initiative we signed in Berlin. So it will be easier for you to plan your activities if you get familiarized with these documents. We have a great program, and you have to be in the list of the higher educational institutions to use the vouchers according to this program, but we are thinking about an experimental project to make it possible for all women to get a voucher like that, irrespective of their social status, etc. And they will be able to use this voucher to follow the courses in different non-formal education institutions. The Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Justice are not against it, but strategic documents are very important. I would like to use this opportunity and ask the question to Mr. Vinitsky. It's going to be a good question, don't worry. We came to a conclusion that the customer of higher education is society. Society needs people with a worldview, with a civil stance, with the skills of critical thinking, with some ethical preferences, etc. The question is as follows. When are we going to modernize the network and develop these new occupational education schools? It is true that we are not going to abandon the subjects that develop the values creeds of citizens. I think it's going to be a challenge, especially for engineering programs. It's going to be a challenge for sure, because there is a demand among students and future students, because everything we have been doing is aimed at increasing the agency of students, and I'm really proud that we achieved that. I think that's a great evolutionary step forward, but it will mean that this humanitarian component, let's call it like that, will depend on the choice of the student, and it means that it has to be presented in a nice way by the university itself, by the professors. I can understand your concern. I often get messages that everything is bad in the world of education, and I can instantly ask the question, and who stopped the Russians in Kyiv, Chernihiv, Odessa, Mykolaiv. These were Ukrainians aged between 25 and 35 who graduated from Ukrainian institutions. And we have to be proud of it because Ukrainian education system created people with values, with initiatives, those who are able to self-organize. And dear colleagues, we stopped Russian army. And people who went through Ukrainian education did it. It's something we can be proud of and we cannot lose it. So will the state preserve it? Yes. As a moderator, I can see that we have many more questions, but we will discuss them later. I would like to become someone who makes wishes come true, but we have many representatives of businesses here. Can you name one thing that businesses can do now for the education system? It should not be a top priority. Just name one thing for the labor market in Ukraine or for the education system. One thing. We are politicians, so we don't know how to speak briefly. Go to the universities. One negative experience should not shape your negative attitude to the whole education system. Okay, you already have some experience, and the third attempt might become successful. Yes, universities are not as flexible as businesses, but try work with one university, the second one, go back to your alma mater. You know what works there, create an association of workers, go to your rectors, to the heads of your faculties, try to give a public lecture. It will take just 1 or 2 hours of your life, but you will explain to the students how you reached success. Uh, you grew up in these systems, probably despite of some things in them, but go to the universities and give speeches there. I will repeat the same thing. We have a draft law which was already voted in the Parliament of Ukraine. It's ready to be signed by the President. It provides for the position of the educator practitioner, and 30% of educational programs can be covered by people with no degree who can spread practical approaches. I won't say anything new. You just need to realize you are also partially responsible for what's happening in our educational institutions. There can be this approach that we're paying taxes and the state has to train the specialists, but let's all be conscious of our shared responsibility.